All right, welcome. Welcome to the Adaptive Leadership Approach for Increasing Diversity in the Sport Industry's Workplace, our examination of racial, gender, and ability inclusion. I'm here. My name is Dr. Lana Huberty from Concordia University in St. Paul, Minnesota, along with Dr. Mark Moore from ECU, Eastern Carolina University. We are here to talk today about the organizational leaders that have done research and agree that diverse workplace translates into a stronger bottom line. Diversity in the workplace can be achieved through methods targeted at hiring across genders, races, or people with varying physical abilities. Research on employing a gender diverse workforce has found several positives, such as performance improvement through varying opinions and experiences, along with a reduction in work-family conflict. When it comes to having racial diversity, organizations have experienced benefits as well as the employees experiencing benefits. The positive role of diversity climate has been found to be effective in leveraging different viewpoints or creative skills that enhance the organization's capacity to reach their goals and enhance the overall organizational performance. Disabled people and the companies they work for have also reported positive gains for both parties. These gains include the employees feeling valued, respected, along with the employer experiencing a lower amount of absenteeism and a lower turnover amongst the specific population. Furthermore, workers with developmental disabilities tend to be reliable, dedicated, and loyal employees. They are found to have to be positive in their work attitude and their ethics. With evidence supporting the effectiveness of diversity in our workforces, it is necessary to examine how organizational leaders can best capitalize on such an initiative. So the focus of this project is on the adaptive leadership approach and what it means to be an adaptive leader in the workplace today. Through our analysis, you will see how with the right leadership and coaching, a diverse workforce can effectively integrate into a traditional organizational setting. This presentation will better equip sport management educators to train our students to understand the value of inclusion and what it can mean when transforming the workplace by using adaptive leadership to become a change agent here in the 21st century.
I like important that agree with that and designing a working all climate and establishing organization model leave that cannot be fully implemented as a strategic approach for gaining a better understanding of diversity inclusion mechanism and workplace. It may simple what a real point with a more fundamental time found that human resource management has to serve as a key determinant of representation of employees. The Queen taught leadership buy-in was some of a key to establishing the skills support and strategic development required to complete workforce diversity. To develop and deliver effectively on diversity initiatives, companies need to focus on implementing amplified by a strong leadership commitment. Apps that are tailored to maintain, for example, the reliability tracking milestones. Adaptive leadership is the aim of this project. Adaptive leadership approach at MA way to accommodate a diverse workforce establishing mutual benefit arrangements between by workplace productivity and by expansion of work organization design and are partly impacted by the work employee involved.
All right, thank you, Dr. Moore, for sharing about the aim of this project. I'm going to dig a little bit into the thesis of adaptive leadership. So the foundational thesis of adaptive leadership of this specific approach is that an adaptive leader embodies a crisis as an opportunity. This requires adaptive leaders to manage and embrace change through a strategic management lens. According to Stanton in 2012 and again Atkinson in 2019, change can best be managed through a strategic leadership approach that uses the vulnerability of the crisis as an opportunity by prioritizing your core competencies. This method could involve using the skills and experiences of its workforce. People with different, diverse experiences have often been exposed to challenging situations. Thus, they can offer problem-solving skills and be creative when it comes to being an asset for the employer who is facing the travail. Leading under this basic guiding principle of seeing a crisis as an opportunity really means being able to use the staff members' capabilities and the energies of the group to help direct the organization's resilience while building mutual trust and creativity among administration, staff, and the community. So to look a little deeper into this theory of adaptive leadership, there are a few key adaptive leadership principles. They're listed here on the screen, but I'm going to dig a little deeper into each one with you. First, understanding adaptive leadership principles will enable a leader to positively impact diverse people in their pursuit of gainful employment. However, this adaptive tactic tends to facilitate a leadership style change that moves the leader from an autocratic into a transformational orientation. In order to manage this evolving workforce that values diversity and the complexity of having an inclusive workforce. This is particularly applicable in shaping the organization structure to garner the administrative and philosophical support for workforce diversity. We have found that people across genders, races, and abilities must be active participants in transforming the organization's culture to better serve their needs. When organizational stakeholders are involved in the transformation, the change initiative is more likely to be properly managed and achieve success. So as we look at the slide, anyone can be called to lead. We want to talk about the theory behind adaptive leadership that suggests that anyone may be called to lead. And according to this theorem, workers with varying ethnicities, genders, abilities, backgrounds can develop and grow under the stewardship of an adaptive leader. By participating in a climate created by adaptive leaders, they can be involved in important professional aspects that can help improve their self-worth, which could possibly otherwise be deflated or stagnated under unemployment statuses. However, this transformational leadership style emphasizes within adaptive leadership really fosters the opportunity to have the daily needs of employees to be adequately satisfied. Moreover, involvement in the leadership of an organization or even just the leadership of a department within an organization can compel the employees to pursue the satisfaction of high-level needs such as autonomy, relatedness, and competence. These are crucial in forming a self-determination path to a successful and rewarding career. As employees plot their self-determination, they may possess the added motivation found in learning when the organization has this career calling aspect to it. Thus, it is important to remember that the aim of an adaptive leader is not to pigeonhole workers with diverse characteristics into the stereotypical confining position, but rather it is the development of these various individuals into skilled professionals.
Adaptive leader being contact a leader set and change or acceptable that forward outlook for when leader fall to recognize a difference between technical changes and adaptive changes. When going as for lead Jackson is in my attempt to develop a leadership model that will effectively import me and me adaptive style. Technical framework and my attempt to set a funnel in my system without implementing change in my need for the system. This will be a short form project and about them. An example of this type of thing can be implementation of work accommodation, such as a several adjustment for a point with a temporary disability. Technical things tend to be routine, easy to implement, and we receive widespread support among staff member and staff lead team relating to our employment. Although that will be generally do not impact a structure of work organization.
So now that we've talked a little bit about the theory and behind being adaptive leader, let's look at how do we create an adaptive system. Effective adaptive change will require long-term systemic change. To change an adaptive system, a leader must examine the fundamental nature of the organization and how the current systems are operating. A basis of support for this flexibility is that systemic change focuses on long-term transformation. This is accomplished through attention and inquisition of the organization's fundamental building blocks. To effectively lead through this adaptive process, there are 4 key or core necessary elements. These elements include the diagnosis of situations, self-element management, skillful interventions, and the energy and motivation of others. The latter element is crucial, as it is resistance from others that frequently results in a failed change initiative. We want to make sure that our staff members are receptive to change, and therefore they must be involved in the transformative process. Moreover, the organization must use change to empower employees by operationalizing the vision into strategic actions. Having the whole team work together in creating this vision is integral. It helps us structure a climate that enables workers to use their respective competencies and be valued as human resources. And of course, that goes back to having a diverse workforce. In the realm of adaptive leadership, all employees are managed in accordance to their strengths and their diverse contributions. As such, adaptive leaders focus on the change to value and cultivate each employee's talents and contributions. As we dig a little deeper into this framework, we're going to use Woolard's 2018 specific framework. He developed this, and it defines the key elements of adaptive leadership and includes the following steps. The first step is the leader needs to diagnose the situation to explore tough interpretations and distinguish what is technical work and what work can be adaptive. This step is important in understanding process challenges in the workplace. It includes an understanding of the degree of flexibility in the organization's work processes to gauge workers possessing special needs. Not only does flexibility enable leaders to properly accommodate diverse individuals who are showing this potential for long-term workplace success, but it also assists the employers in comprehending how to get work done, regardless of whether most staff members are conforming or not to this change initiative. Secondly, as an adaptive leader, self-awareness is a top priority. Knowing your strength, your vulnerabilities, and what triggers will assist you as the leader and your employees is important when it comes to implementing this adaptive leadership approach. This step entails carefully listening to what your employees are sharing and being able to interpret the true meanings, as well as being comfortable handling uncertainty and conflict. As leaders experiment beyond their comfort zone, this step can be challenging, but it must be performed when considering individuals across genders, races, and abilities for employment. The third step in this adaptive leadership approach is to intervene skillfully. In this step, the leader makes conscious choices while holding on to the organization's purpose. During this process, the leader needs to act experimentally, right? Um, And then he or she may need to experiment with several practices to best accommodate the diverse employees. No practice is best for all. So in this regard, an effective leader must experiment to see what tactics are best satisfying the needs of the employee. Adaptive leadership also includes the process of energizing others. Specifically, Woolard 2018 noted, engage unusual voices, work across the fractions, inspire a collective purpose, and create a trustworthy process. From this perspective, a manager leading with an adaptive leadership orientation must be collaborative, making sure to include the stakeholders to best maximize the workforce productivity.
Continue a theme of adaptive leadership approach to diversity. See what impact make of adaptive leadership. It is a approach have a positive impact on employee and organization. Diversity in a workforce have been found to be beneficial to organization multiple ways that have employee intention, creativity, and innovation, idea generation, enhancement, and financial improvement. These diversity initiatives can be extended to folks on race, gender, and disability improvement. This certainly examines diversity initiatives and detail on how engagement the adaptive leadership style have a direct positive impact on the workplace by improving the workplace needs themselves and what opportunity and the cognitive the adaptive leaders seek a way to being in and remain diverse employees.
So continuing the contribution of adaptive leadership to diversity. As we've mentioned earlier, there's been a lot of research, and research has found that when employees perceive equal access to opportunities and they see this fair treatment going on within a workplace, that others seeking employment opportunities with this particular organization actually increases. In order to seize this opportunity, employers must strive to meet the needs of others to attract and keep employees. While garnering support for such initiatives, it's common in today's work environment for employee diversity initiatives to come with challenges, especially for the leaders within the organization. This brings us to the need for adaptive leadership, and based on Woolard's 2018 framework, organizational leaders must first assess the organizational culture to determine whether the benefits of employment for these diverse people outweighs the cost of accommodating disability within the workplace. During this assessment, an adaptive leader examines the jobs to determine how technical responsibilities can be adaptive so that these essential components are capable of being performed by a diverse workforce. This can typically be achieved through performing a job analysis, but during this step, leaders must be aware that they are following the legal accommodation policies. Leaders should be familiar with and follow these legal policies, and when in doubt, seek legal counsel. You want to make sure that you are recognizing and following along the respective equal opportunity human resource legal requirements.
Secondly, and adaptively must perform a thought awareness analysis to make sure they have a knowledge base and full fact to what each mammoth role divorce, gender, race, and mobility background. And knowledge is important to employees need and all of what will need on tiny and reflective manner. Adaptive even have a strategic or pre-plan that amp for provide ample motivation that is directed to work with so that they can make a mobile contribution to a bottom line. When they incorporate important and impede employers by forming to understand and receive a complete portfolio of benefits that come from employing a diverse workforce when they talk to adaptive approach to leadership. And consumers who went innovative one and see how with a right leadership and coaching a diverse workforce can be effectively integrated into a grateful organization. This conceived approach can truly impact a workplace. However, this aspiration cannot be evolved unless leaders are committed to adapting their work system to a fully available cold that and applying and certainly that result and a positive impact for organization. This set a good development of quantum and especially through where the high road and the rest was being achieved. In that part that we examine adaptive leadership and a positive implementation that divorce, that ability divorce we work for and other demographics that will have on the organization. But certainly we examine this leadership approach as a means for impacting a contribute with people with disability and all their gender and race. And all and all the said we do not perceive adaptive leader as impacting race by but they will look at an entire organization from a systemic perspective.
So Dr. Moore shared with you the conclusion, but I'm going to highlight just a few key takeaways that we found in doing our research. First, through the investigation of adaptive leadership, the specific approach, it was evident that this approach can be adopted and it can have a positive impact employees within a work organization. By viewing diversity initiatives as opportunities instead of challenges, which in itself is a challenge, this leadership approach can seek ways to hire, engage, and promote workers with diverse genders, racial background, and ability levels. Adaptive leadership helps to direct an organization's resilience while building mutual trust and creativity among the administration, the staff, and the community. Further, this adaptive approach can create a culture where workers, regardless of gender, race, or ability, can work together in pursuit of the organization's goals. However, DAS from 2017 recommended that employers use caution when it comes to implementing an adaptive leadership approach, as the organizational decision makers must first identify what changes are needed to best accommodate this diverse workforce. Then, discussions should be conducted with employees and other stakeholders. We do know that strategic planning for change would follow this discussion. It would follow the identification of having the resources inventoried and the opportunities assessed to see how diversity fits in. We also recommend including metrics that will be used to assess the progress and benchmark how well the transformation is going. To make data-informed decisions when considering people across genders, race, and ability, organizational decision makers should be proactive in utilizing these business analytics and practicing good data. If and when specific goals are not reached, which of course can happen, adjustments will be made in that change process. Transformation should be assessed using formative and summative assessments. Again, having that top leadership support is crucial to the overall success of adaptive leadership implementation, evaluation, and plan adjustment. In conclusion, adaptive leadership is an area of promise for better understanding the realities of diverse individuals within our work organizations. This research presented supports the exploration and strategic integration of such initiatives into the workplace, which we trust will be of interest to the practitioner as well as the theorist.
Thank you for taking the time to review what everything on our adaptive leadership approach. We hope to put a few ideas that you have a leader and support him and speak diversity in a workplace. Keep in mind that diversity can be found with race, gender, and mobility. There are perhaps many opportunities. Have a great day.
So good afternoon, everyone. I just want to welcome you to the Q&A session for an adaptive leadership approach for increasing diversity in sports industries, workplace, racial, gender, and ability inclusion. To answer your question, we have Mark and Lena, and please type your name and affiliation in the chat box if you have any questions. And I guess it's just the two of us until. Colleen, would you like to start?
Yeah, so this is the first time I'm going to freely admit this. I just perused really quickly through your presentation because since Monday, I've been trying to watch as many of them as I can. So instead of a question, would you be willing to sort of give me some of the major takeaways so when I can go back and watch it a little more, you know, without running through it, just some things that I would like to maybe pay attention to that you sort of learned from this study.
Mark, do you want to set it up?
Disability and diversity.
I think your feedback is coming through the microphone.
I can type, I am.
I'm not sure. Dr. Moore, did you say you're going to type it in? Okay. So Colleen and Kizzy, Dr. Moore was my master's advisor. So we go way back to like, I don't want to tell you how long, 20 years ago, maybe, when I first met Dr. Moore.
He says disability is part of diversity.
And that's a great way for me. I mean, just flipping through what I was able to go through quickly, I kept moving the cursor ahead. I mean, I basically got that out of that. But I do think this is an area, those of us who teach diversity in our courses is often something that's overlooked. And so, I mean, if there's any sort of takeaways or little pearls of wisdom that you would want to share, and then of course, I'll have time to go back and watch, you know, more thoroughly.
Yeah. So Colleen, Dr. Moore and I have done through the years research looking at inclusion for females getting, you know, we've looked at female athletic administrators and, you know, female GAs and talked about diversity inclusion in that way. We've done a little bit with race, you know, and the inclusion with race. And then we've done, Dr. Moore has done a lot of research on disability inclusion because I agree with you. When we talk about inclusion in the classroom, we're really good at doing a section on females and gender, females underrepresented here, and how can we have this conversation, and how can we be more supportive, and even for the up and coming new male professionals, what can they do when they get into the job that is supportive of being diverse in the hiring? And we've done that really well across genders and race. But when we come to talking about disability and people with disabilities, we tend to either just not cover it, or like I said to my students a couple weeks ago, we were talking, I teach a law class, so we were talking about hiring practices. And I said, when you go to hire someone, you know, you often have this picture in your mind, like, ooh, this is the kind of person I'm looking for. And I said, if we were hiring for our football team, and I have like, whatever, 50% of my class is football players, right? So I said, if our football coach were to leave and we were going to hire a new football coach, what would this person be like? And they said, well, it'd have to be a male because only men have ever played football. So they're the only ones who can really coach it. And I'm like, right? I mean, you can see, and they're not being mean and they're not trying to say things that are awful. They're just processing. And so I said, well, what if it was someone in a wheelchair, right? So someone in a wheelchair who was a former player and a coach or whatever, and is in a wheelchair. And they had to really think about that, because that's a disability, right? But is it really a disability when it comes to that position? So they struggled with the female being the coach. They struggled less with it being someone with a physical disability. And then race, we're a really, really diverse school. So the race didn't come into play at all. But I don't know, Colleen and Kizzy, and I don't know, Dr. Moore, do you have those conversations in your classroom as well?
When I teach about disability, I do.
So how do you get your students to, I don't know, realize they might have that bias and how to get past it, how to think a little broader?
I teach a global course on disability and organization to honor college students.
There's a static in his frequency. It's not.
Honor college students.
He's got some feedback. Is that what you said,
Yeah.
Kizzy? Some static?
Yeah, it's not his, the whatever is in the background is overshadowing his voice. And
It could be, Dr. Moore, that your computer's running again. Sometimes his modem runs in the background.
oh,
I saw it, it's on the off.
Okay.
I forgot to, and I don't want to do it now.
Okay.
I will type.
Okay. Well, while he's typing, I think that's disability in my classes. I don't think that's something we ever touch on. It's always just race and gender. So now that you brought it up, it just gave me a different way of looking at it, but it's not. No, it's always debate between race and gender and everything else except for disability, which never ever comes up.
I have a graduate student right now who was a crap, I can't exactly remember. He actually played some he's a professional athlete. And he ended up having a spine injury, so he's in a wheelchair. And he has some severe physical disabilities, but he's back in school because he wants to work in athletic administration. And so he's written a book. He's kind of famous for, being very motivating. But I think it is important for us, and Kizzy, you as an up and coming professional, and then our students as they go out and get in positions of hiring, that they think about this, because just because you have a physical disability doesn't mean that you don't have all of the skills necessary to do that job.
Yeah,
So
that's true. We teach an honor college seminar in disability within work organization.
is that a graduate course?
So,
No, undergraduate. Okay.
Yeah, and one question I have for Dr. Moore and Lana, you as well, is that sometimes I think when we start to include these things that aren't often covered, in our usual curriculum, is that we have to look for books or resources outside of that. So I'm wondering if either of you could recommend not even just a textbook, but a book or a resource where if we wanted to integrate this to make sure it was covered. Because most of my background learning about this is I'm friends and colleagues with Dr. John Grady, who teaches at South Carolina, but he teaches a lot about legal issues related, to disability and sport related things. So I feel comfortable with the legal classes, but I would love to, go beyond that. And if you have any suggestions, I would appreciate those.
Dr. Moore, have you written any books or general guidelines?
one moment.
Okay. I know Dr. Moore has done, like I said, one of his main focuses is this disability inclusion. We did in the presentation, Colleen, I'm looking, I don't know what slide this is, 11, where there's been some research that comes up and talks about how someone who is in a position of leadership and trying to have this adaptive approach, some steps or some best practices are outlined in this. And it talks about, we have to be realistic that there may be some positions where you can integrate someone with a physical disability but understanding what is the skill set for that position, and is it one that you can open up and have this wider lens.
Yeah, perfect. And thank you, Dr. Moore, for putting that out there. It's great that that's available. And I apologize. Like I said, I didn't get a chance to really thoroughly. So if I'm repeating things that you have in your presentation, I'm just taking some notes. So when I go back, I'll know to look for these things. So I appreciate that.
I have a question. Well, maybe it's a question and a comment, because based on everything that I've read and gone through in classes, it's like, everyone have their own perception or interpretation of what diversity looks like. So for Dr. Doctor is a doctor or Mr. Okay, what does diversity and look like for you and Lana? Because diversity for me may look different from your own and the hiring managers that are hiring. So when you think of diversity, you want to think of disability, because that is something that we never thought of, So as leaders or person in that position, what do you think should be the basic form for what diversity looks like when it comes to including everyone in that position.
Yeah, that's a great question. So what does diversity look like? I know someone asked this in an earlier session today. They said, is the goal to have, for example, the people in leadership positions, are they to reflect the diversity of the people who work there or the people you serve or people in general, right? It's hard to know. I think if I was going to say you want to have diversity and inclusion, you want to have standards and processes that don't exclude or hold people back, right? So I want to make sure that as I'm writing a job description and as I'm doing interviews and hiring practices, even within my organization, I want to make sure that the people have equal opportunity to training and advancement and resources so that my decisions, because sometimes our practices, we don't realize what we're doing, actually holds down a specific part of the demographic. So my goal as a teacher is to have these conversations so that I realize and my students start to realize what practices maybe they experienced or that they are perpetuating, they're repeating,
Mhm.
that could be causing the diversity not to have an opportunity. So does that make sense?
Somewhat.
Somewhat? Yeah, because I agree. The school I work at is really diverse, which is
Oh,
wonderful. My students are graduating, and one of I think Colleen, you were in the session yesterday where someone said when they're teaching a class, they have students look at job descriptions and they look at what skills,
the
knowledge, and abilities
breakdown.
they want the
Mhm.
applicant to have. And someone mentioned a lot of the jobs, they want you to be able to work with diverse populations. So if you've been in school and you've been around diverse populations and you've done that for 4 years, you graduate and you don't think anything of being a part of a diverse group. And that's a gift that these, some of our diverse programs are able to do. And these conversations around diversity, I mean, we've got to have them. Students have to understand how to have these. We call them difficult, but our students are much better at having them than we are. They're
Yeah,
more
okay.
comfortable with it, right? Colleen, I think you said, I'm afraid of saying something wrong in these conversations.
Yeah,
So
sometimes I think that I know I was Jennifer Van Sickle when she was talking
yes,
about doing the community engagement, just of none of I'm trying to be so careful about not offending anyone, and I feel like only educating ourselves is a way to understand, our actions and our words, and choosing them carefully. So yeah, it's a complex issue, but we can't ignore it. I would rather do something wrong and then say, oops, I didn't know, or I'm sorry, or I'll work on that, rather than putting my head in the sand and pretending it doesn't exist. Because I think we do know it exists in hiring. We don't have very diverse very diverse sport management faculty staffs around the country. So, and I think we should be more diverse.
I think so too. That would make it easier to hire people when your leadership is diverse. They think along that line.
Dr. Moore, your background noise is gone, so feel free to jump in.
Okay. Did you see my message?
Yes,
There is no diversity within disability.
There is diversity.
there is diversity within disability.
Oh, there is diversity within disability. Yeah.
Right. And I think that's key for us to understand too. None of us like to be lumped all together, right? Everybody who has brown hair, everybody who played volleyball. If someone is hearing impaired, their disability is not the same as someone who has trouble reading or has dyslexia. So I think that's a great point. And I'm glad Dr. Moore put that in there for us to remember the diversity within that.
Anything else? Well, Colleen, hopefully you get a chance to just peruse through it, and our emails are in there. So if you have any follow-up questions.
Yes, thank you. And again, I
Thank you.
wanted to be honest. I went through it really quickly and said, I'm going to go tomorrow, but I'll just be honest that there's so many of them. I've tried to
Yeah.
watch since Monday, but we all have jobs. Like I have classes and grading, and I'm like, oh, running around trying to make it happen. But it's been really great. So thank you for doing this. And I'm ready to go take a deeper dive.
Thank you. Thank you for
Yeah.
coming.